Hey, everybody. Welcome to another session of Meet the Makers. Today, we're going to be reviewing a new feature, a new open source project that we're adding called pgzx, which is a way to create Zig extensions for Postgres. And so I'm head of product at Xata. My name is Alex Francoeur, and I'd like to introduce the team. Tudor, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, I'm Tudor. I'm CTO at Xata. I'm living in Berlin. I'm originally from Romania, and yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steffen, and I'm also living in Berlin, and I'm one of the backend developers. And yeah, I spent a few weeks recently on the pgzx project.
All right. And before we dive into the specifics, I usually ask for something unique from one of our developers here. And so, Tudor, why don't you tell me something about yourself?
So I don't know how unique it is, but I have been learning to solve the Rubik cube now at 41 years old. But that's pretty easy with all the YouTube tutorials and such. So I got that down, and now I'm trying to improve my time. I am below 3 minutes now, but still no near my nephews that can do it in like 1 minute. So.
That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Nice skill to have at the age of 41. And what about you, Stefan? Any hobbies? Any Rubik's cube records you're trying to break?
No, not any Rubik cubes. I never tried. I don't have the attention for it. Like puzzles are my. I cannot. um, But I just learned that Tudor's older than me. I always thought I'm the older one, so maybe a fun fact. No, like maybe something I still find funny. Like as a kid, I used to hack the Game Boy ROMs so I cannot die. Because why get good if you cannot die, right? Yeah.
That's wonderful. I also used to hack the Game Boy ROMs, and I also but more for like visuals. And I built a whole community around it. Actually, it was kind of fun. Uh, okay, all right, cool, nice. Those were great intros. And all right, so let's dive into maybe what we're talking about today a bit. And so I'm not sure who'd like to tell the story, but PGZX kind of came out of some larger work that we're doing. And I don't know, maybe Tudor or Stefan, one of you can give kind of like the inception story of how PGZX came about and a little more detail about what it is.
Yeah, so I can start. We were working on what will become our take, Zeta's take for distributed Postgres. It's a bigger open source project that we're planning. Um, and there, one of the things that we realized pretty quickly is that we have to make use of the existing Postgres code. So rather than being a proxy written maybe a different language or something like this, like maybe the approach that Vitess has for MySQL. We realized it's a pity to not make use of the actual Postgres code because there have been a lot of work going into it, like the planner and everything. Um, so then, since we decided to try to make use of the Postgres code, there were a few options. One was to write it in C, like using C extensions mostly. This is what, for example, Citus does. Another option would be to do it in Rust, which is like a very popular option, and there is pgrx, which in a way served as inspiration for pgzx. And the fourth option was to write it in Zig. And of course, in these things, there are pros and cons. We can go into the details of it. But we figured the best choice for us is to try the Zig route. And I think we are the first major project using Zig to create Postgres extensions. So automatically we had to build the tooling that you need in order to use Zig code to interact with Postgres. And this is how pgzx is born. So we were open sourcing it as a first result of this project, if you want.
Awesome. Thank you. That's wonderful. And so I'll dive a little bit maybe into some of the specifics. And typically, some of these questions are more related to features that we have in Xata, so might need to adjust them on the fly. But I'm trying to be consistent for the sessions. And so I guess as users of the open source project, what pain points, I guess, specifically would this hit for people trying to create extensions in Postgres? And I know it's early, and maybe we can talk a bit about where you see the project going to. But like, what pain points specifically outside of just enabling Zig development?
I mean, what pain points? So one of the reasons we chose Zig is also how easy it is to integrate Zig with existing C code. Right. One of the motivations is to basically reuse the C code as it's not have too many layers of abstractions over it. But the integration with C is like not perfect. Like sometimes when you want to use or need to use macros written in C, they cannot always be used with C code. The transpiling in Zig, like the reuse of C code, is really, really good, even for macros. But sometimes you run into limitations of what is possible. And this is kind of the goal of the project. It's more like, hey, we started working on it, and then we figured there are components that could be reused, maybe for better type checking. For example, in Postgres, you have lists and hash tables and everything, but you have to work with the void pointers and then do all the casting. And we figured, hey, it can be easier to or better to understand the code if you have it fully typed. That is, for some types, we have wrappers, so you have a proper typing, and then we do the translation for you, handling errors and so on. Or the very early pain point is basically how do you register or how do you create a plugin for Postgres, like an extension, a shared library? You have to expose a function that returns a given structure with some given values, and it must match. And you do it with a macro in C, but this macro does not compile to Zig. That is, the project is more like providing you additional tooling to integrate your existing project with Postgres, but we do not try to write an abstraction layer over to the Postgres. You're more or less supposed to, hey, use the C Postgres API as much as possible, but if you run into limitations, like macros not compiling, better type checking, and so on, then we will try to provide it via pgzx.
Nice.
So it's more like working together, not on top, not against, but trying to integrate.
Yeah, we think it's like adding another way of building Postgres extensions, which we hope is going to be useful for other people, not just for us. And because, as I said, the obvious other choices are in C, but then you have no memory safety of any kind. So you'll have to fight with segmentation faults and this kind of stuff. Or in Rust, but Rust, because of its runtime model, it won't let you access all the APIs that you have in Postgres, and you have to use unsafe a lot and so on. So Zig is in a way middle ground between those two options, I would say. So yeah, basically the aim point that we're trying to solve is build the Postgres extensions, but not like on a very simple extension. It might make more sense to use Rust maybe. On a complex one where you want to hook into more advanced functionality inside the Postgres code, then you can do it in C, and we're opening up also Zig as an option, basically.
Perfect. Thank you both for going into details there. And I guess I'll probably take maybe a little step back to the actual kind of planning and development of the feature itself. Were there any? What version are we releasing this as? I should probably know this. Is it like a 0.1? 0.0.1? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more
Okay.
like a 0.0.1.
Okay.
Like as I said, or as Tudor said, we're working on our own project, and pgzx is like something that happened on the side. Like, hey, we need this functionality. We added. We running into a blocker here. We added, and we also hope that maybe a community will also come in and saying, hey, we need this. Can we add this to the project?
Yeah,
And so,
the way I would describe the release version is if you are going to try to use Zig to create Postgres extension, it's going to be easier with pgzx than without. But anything else, you know.
so given this was born out of a larger project, were there any key decisions, I guess, maybe to minimize the amount of development put into it, or like something to prioritize to make sure that it was working? I noticed we shipped with some examples and some tooling. Were those some of the key decisions, and was there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we're building the stuff that we need because of the Postgres. If you think of it as an API, basically the whole Postgres source code is kind of an API. There's a lot of stuff that we could offer in pgzx, but we're focusing on the stuff that we actually need. So automatically, almost everything gets a first user in us, so that we know that it works and such. But then, since we decided to let's make it its own open source project, we did invest in a bit into like documentation for it, those sample extensions, a pretty nice development environment, making it simpler to build it, even if you are not in the repo and so on. So we did invest a bit into that just to make it, it's a standalone good open source project.
And at Zeta, we're a remote company. Most of us are spread out across Europe or Eastern U.S. And both of you happen to live in Berlin. And I know that there was a bit of kind of like a planning session or a day that I kind of just picture both of you with the shades down, like hacking away at things. And I guess this just leads me to my next question. Was there anything memorable during the development of this project? I don't know if anything happened fun there, or is there anything that you'd like to share that was just, I don't know, sticks out?
I wish I made photos. I think I didn't make any photos, but yeah, we booked a co-working space. So like, even though we both live in Berlin, we actually only meet for lunch from time to time. We don't actually meet for work. We just sync up on Zoom and so on. But for this one, we did meet for a day, and our only requirement was let's get a room that has a whiteboard. And that sounds simple, but actually it took us a while to find one. And imagine this room with no windows. You said the shades were down. No, there were no windows to begin with, and like 1.5 meters per 1.5 meters. But it had a whiteboard, so it's like that's kind of all we needed.
And that's all that matters, I guess. Was Club Mate involved at all?
Not that time, or
Ah,
did we
okay.
have? I don't know.
No, it's more like Monica's thing, I think. He
Yeah,
loves Club
Stefan, did you have
Mate.
any specific moments that stick out?
Well, we meet every 6 months, like the whole team, and we have these discussions, and it is a very intense week. And when you're back home, you're still full of power and thinking you want to do everything. At the same time, you want to be on vacation. Think of it like just in a single day, right? It was very intense. We've been basically like discussing 8, 9 hours nonstop, and yeah, I have an idea, and then the other one was, no, this will not work because, and then we have had another idea. So it was super intense actually, but it was great. It was a great session, and then you go home and you're like, oh, now I want to work on it. Right. So it's like these sessions more just condensed, yeah, or like these months, these weeks where we meet, more intense.
Yeah, those are the fun ones though. I have one last question for both of you. And so since we're releasing this pgzx during our launch week, is there any specific feedback? Like, if you could talk to your users, is there any specific feedback you'd be looking for?
guess I just be curious what they want to build, um, and then if they try it, what issues they face.
The standard stuff.
Yeah, same. I would also love to see people starting contributing to it, like saying, "Hey, I tried to solve this issue. This is missing. I did not do this," and I would like to contribute this back and share it with everyone.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that's it for the interview portion of this. Tutor, I think I can pass it to you for a demo of pgzx.
All right, great. I think you should see my screen now, right? Okay, so this is the project. There's a README with documentation and so on. Also generated documentation, which is available here. And as we were saying earlier, it comes with 2 sample extensions. The char count zig one is pretty much the simplest extension that you could do. It's really like the hello world of Postgres extensions. The other one is a little bit more complex. It's like a PG audit equivalent in Zig. We chose it because we knew PG audit needs to hook into a lot of functionality in the executor and so on. So we wanted to have those hooks and see them running and deal with more complex functionality. But for this demo, I will just show the simple one, the hello world one. And it's inspired from a C extension tutorial. Is this one? Let me show you what it does. Basically, it counts characters. Let me go here. And for pgzx comes with a development environment based on Nix. This can download the Postgres source code and install it in a particular path, and then build extensions, install the extension in that path, and so on. So it makes the development environment for it. Now this is done with these functions, pginit and pguse and so on. But I have all that already done, so I don't need to do it. So I'm just going to go into the examples folder and that char count zig extension. And to build it, I have to run something like this. And this is compiling the extension, but also installing it in that Postgres instance. So it's actually all ready to go. I just need to connect to it using pSQL. And I just need to provide the username there because the host is all local and such, so everything works. And now I can try it. So I can do select char count zig is the function that it adds. And as I was saying, what it does, it counts how many times this character shows up in this string. In this case, I has 2 i's, so the response is I. And you see also this debugging log that we're sending from the extension. I'll show you where that happens. And for example, if if I add more highs here, now we just have more i's in it. And let me show you the code and compare it maybe a little bit with the C version of it. This here would be the C version, and you will actually see the Zig version is actually a little bit simpler and easier to understand. But you see, this is what you need to declare a new module, a new Postgres extension. You just need to use this function, and then with this pg function v1, you register this SQL function char count zig is implemented with this one, and this is the whole implementation. Out of which 3 lines, it's actually that debugging, the info messages that I was telling you, and the actual counting of characters is quite simple, and it's pretty normal Zig code, nothing really special about it. The reason is actually a little bit simpler than the C version is because in the C version you have to interpret the parameters in a particular way. This is what's going on in this part here, and then you see you have to copy them and so on. pgzx does that for you, so you are actually receiving them as normal Zig function parameters here, which is quite convenient. It also comes with unit tests, so you can create these test suites and put test function in them where you can test stuff. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that, how that works later. Now, one thing I want to show you in this, maybe some of you have noticed it already. So the function does protect for when the second parameter has more than one character. So if I do here I, it will complain that the target character has more than one byte. However, it does not protect against an empty string here. And that's a bug, and you see here it then tries to access a character. So if this was C code, you would expect here a segmentation fault, and if you have ever dealt with segmentation faults in software, it's not exactly pleasant. And more important than that, it's a security risk. Any segmentation fault and any out of bounds access and so on can be a security risk. However, let's try that here in Zig. So I'll do it like this: empty character. And now if I do that, the process crashed. But if I check the logs, I am getting an actual nice track trace, which points me exactly where the error is. So there's an index out of bounds exactly at this line. So it's really nice to get. This is like the memory safety features of Zig, which you get, of course, in the Zig code. So if you call things from the Postgres core and there's a segmentation fault in the Postgres code, that's not covered. You get the memory safety only for the Zig code, but that's still like it's a really good thing to have and a way to create safer code, basically, and one of the more important reasons for which we decided to use Zig and not just write C code in our project. Right, that's it. And then let me also show you how to run the unit test. I think I can probably just do it here. So you do Zig build unit, and I think we still need this. And this one, what it does is it runs these functions. The reason I was mentioning they are interesting is that we do want to run these unit tests kind of in the Postgres instance because they might be calling Postgres code. So in order to have, be able to write better tests, we want to have them in the Postgres servers. So the way pgzx solves that is that it registers these test suites as a SQL function, exactly like how we do this. And then it calls that function via SQL with just select the test functions. And this is what's happening here when you call Zig build unit. So that's how we do unit tests. And there's also support for Postgres regression tests. If you have wrote a Postgres extension, it comes with what they call regression tests. And that's basically SQL commands and then the expected output here. And you can do that by calling Zig build pgregress. And there you go. Yeah, that's a walkthrough through the development experience we're using pgzx.
Awesome. Thanks, Tudor. That was a really great demo. It's nice to see how we're making development of Zig extensions in Postgres that much easier. Okay, well, you heard it first. Born out of a small room with no windows and just a whiteboard, pgzx Please try it out. You can check out the repo at xata.io/pgzx. And if you have any questions or interested in chatting more about it, you can find us in Discord. And so we have a Discord channel for Xata. And so enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let us know what you think. Thanks a lot.